Joining us right now is former Georgia Congressman Representative Jack Kingston. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good to see you, Maria.
Is it possible that he's sitting in such a prominent seat and the campaign didn't realize it? I just don't think those kinds of accidents happen, that he would be sitting right behind the camera, behind Hillary Clinton. It seems outrageous.
There's absolutely no way. I've been involved in dozens of these rallies, and when you see the camera pan, the group standing right behind or right next to the candidate, all those people are selected. They are party regulars, they're activists, they're supporters that know each other. They come in and sit in the front row. If the Clinton people are right that there were 3,000 people at that rally, I would say probably about 200 were carefully selected to sit at the front row areas. And then the others just stand and they come. But I can tell you that the scrutiny of the people who are up close is incredible. Not only that, but the security is unbelievable. And so there's no way that somebody like this could just slip in casually.
So what do you mean? So in other words, it was a strategy to put him there then? And then they just decided this was the wrong strategy?
Well, the Clinton people are pros. She's been running for president for what, would you say, 10 years straight? They know what they're doing. There's no way this could have happened by accident. I'm not sure who they were sending a signal to or what they were up to, but I can tell you this, it wasn't just something casual. Now, he said he was invited. I don't, mass mail-ins, they usually have two-tier kind of tickets, again, for the people up front who are the party activists, the regulars, the big supporters. They get on the front row, and then the rest of the crowd who are, just regular, everyday Joe Democrats, they sit in the back, stand in the back.
Let me get the take of the panel here. I just want to point out that the Orlando Gay Club father, the gunman's father, has well-known anti-American views. He's an ideological supporter of the Afghan Taliban, and he has a television show where the television show actively, goes against, has anti-U.S. rhetoric and inflammatory language aimed at non-Pashtuns and at Pakistan. So what do you think happened here?
So, Maria, I agree with the congressman. I've been on several of these campaigns. What you just said right there, if he's had anti-American rhetoric on his television show, from a security perspective, someone like that should not be allowed behind any candidate who's running for president, because that actually, as someone who's worked on these campaigns, represents a major security concern to me. I mean, it's like a concert, right? Behind the candidate, you have an advanced team, and these advanced teams are the strongest, most experienced logistical.
That's what I don't think this just happens, like, by accident. I think it was actually a strategy to put him there for some crazy reason, and then they just figured it out that, oh, maybe that was a mistake. But you don't think so. You think this was an actual mistake.
Well, just because if you talk about how much planning goes into there, yes, perhaps he was flagged when they first brought people in as someone who maybe represented a diverse audience. But because of the fact that she is also talking right about the Orlando massacre, I mean, it's so bad, it's such a huge misstep, and I also can't identify, to play devil's advocate, a reason for why this would be strategic. I mean, Hillary Clinton is known to be very strategic in everything that she does. The campaign is well organized. So what good would it do? I just don't see any good it would do when Donald Trump's been messing up so much, and she would gladly just let him take all the mess up.
Not only does he have anti-American rhetoric, he's also he's homophobic.
Exactly.
So that's the problem too.
Well, he definitely was inspiring his son about that, homophobic ideas. I mean, that's what was speculated after he went into the shooting.
From him.
And the Clinton campaign wouldn't want to be associated with that either. So I just don't understand if it was intentional. Why the reasoning behind it.
Congressman, I mean, both ways are just mind-boggling, because if it was a strategy and then the strategy just went wrong, that's ridiculous, and I don't understand it. And on the other hand, if it was a mistake, if you can't even vet the people at your rally, how are you intending on vetting 10,000 refugees coming in to America, which is what the president wants, and Hillary says she wants much more than that?
I think you're right. I think if we look at a strategy, maybe it's a stretch, but he's very pro-gun control, and that may have been why he was up there. But he has to be known among the local Democrats because he does have this television show, and he was an active supporter of the Taliban. And so there's no way he could slip in there. But you know what this also underscores is the press corruption as respects this campaign. Because what are we hearing out of the press? All about the Second Amendment.
I know.
That, if you recall, June 2008, Barack Obama said, "You bring your knife, we're going to bring our guns." He said that at a Philadelphia rally. Where was the press outrage then? Where was the left? Where was the gun control crowd on that? They're nowhere. You know, they can just dismiss that. Well, that's rhetoric. But the press is not about to let Donald Trump off the hook about anything. But as respects Orlando, they're going to downplay this and say, "Oh well, Hillary didn't know, and he was just a face in the crowd." But again, I can tell you, absolutely no way does anybody get that close to the candidate without being known and well scrutinized from a political standpoint and from a security standpoint.
Of course not. And particularly the Hillary Clinton campaign. They are checking on every last thing. I mean, we're not stupid. I mean, this is so ridiculous. Congressman, let me get your take on something else, because there's a new study from the American Action Forum, and it's noting that during the president's first 7.5 years in office, there have been a total of 600 major regulations issued. 600. Now, the total amount of those regulations is staggering. $743 billion. This report's going on to say that by the end of his 8 years in office, the bill could top $813 billion. He wants to increase regulations in the final 4 months of his presidency as well. Your thoughts?
Well, don't forget, Hillary has embraced all of these economic policies, and her candidacy is essentially a third term for Barack Obama. 43 million people right now are on food stamps. 94 million people aren't working, or they're underemployed, or they're discouraged from looking. The slowest recovery since 1949, and the lowest homeownership rate since the 1950s. And it's all because of these regulations. You'll remember that the picture of Obamacare, it was 7 feet high in regulations. And the cost of health care, as we all know, has gone up under Barack Obama. So the job-killing regulations, it's true, and that's why we have the economy that we have. And that's why Donald Trump is saying we've got to repeal some of these silly, excessive regulations, and we've got to unshackle the private sector.
Right. I'm curious as to why Hillary doesn't get that, or is she just following all the way to the left, and she's just going with that program, rather than recognizing that the regulatory environment is in fact strangling small business and large business, by the way.
You know, she's never been in the private sector. She's never run a business. She's a government person. Donald Trump has run a business, and there's a big difference in their approach.
Congressman, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.